Hey everyone, Patrick here. Ignite just wrapped up its first couple days, and I've got thoughts. Not just ooh, shiny feature thoughts, but what all these Copilot and agent announcements actually mean for how you work, how your teams work, and whether you're ever going to see a real return on your technology investment with it. So this is a special Ignite edition of Beyond the Feature. So welcome back to Beyond the Feature, the show where we don't just chase whatever new button shows up in Microsoft 365, we figure out how to integrate those tools into real workflows so they move the needle for your organization. And I'm Dr. Patrick Jones. By day, I work at AuditSolv. I'm Director of Cloud Strategies, where I help organizations across the country make sense of Microsoft 365, Intune, security, and all things Copilot. So I also run Olympus Academy, where we use online training for users and IT teams, how to actually use the tools they have. And also have several series of books out there on Amazon. Microsoft 365 Companion Series, Purview Companion Series, Intune Playbooks, all that. But this week, all eyes have been on Microsoft Ignite. So I'm going to talk about that. And in this special episode, I want to walk you through my takeaways from the first couple of days of Ignite, not just as a news recap, but through the lens of one big question. How do we move from hunting the features that are being thrown at us to building systems that actually pay off for our technology investment? So we're going to talk about how Copilot quietly grew up at Ignite, why agents are about to be everywhere in your environment, what's changing for your security teams, why smaller organizations no longer can say Copilot is just for the big guys, and how all of this comes together into a practical roadmap. So if you're driving, walking the dog, catching this between meetings, don't worry about the SKUs and the feature names. Focus on the patterns, because the patterns are where the value lives. All right, so first part of it is Copilot growing up from a feature to a work system. So let's start with that big vibe shift. Before Ignite, Copilot was still feel like an extra, right? Something you add on top of your existing tools, a box you checked. We bought Copilot. Look, we're doing AI. Well, what came through very clearly over these past 2 days is that Microsoft is treating Copilot, and especially agents, as the new operating system for work. They introduced this idea of Work IQ. Think of Work IQ as the intelligence layer that sits under Copilot. It looks at your work graph, emails, meetings, chat, document. It also looks at your patterns and your preferences and the growing catalog of agents. Then it tries to choose the right agent and the right context to help you. On top of that, we saw Word, Excel, and PowerPoint agents show up in Copilot chat, plus agent mode rolling out into Office apps themselves. So instead of sitting there thinking, what prompt am I supposed to type? It's more like, I need a board deck that summarizes our last 90 days of customer feedback with themes and recommended actions. And an agent goes off, plans the steps, pulls from the right places, drafts the slides, and checks itself before handing it back to you. Here's why this matters for a show called Beyond the Feature. The question is no longer, should we turn Copilot on? The real question is, are we structured in a way where it's safe and valuable for Copilot to actually understand how we work? So that means your permissions, your SharePoint and Teams architecture, your sensitivity labels, your governance, all of that unsexy stuff just got promoted from we'll get to it later to critical path. This is where my day job at AuditSolv really intersects with Ignite. So I help organizations do Copilot and Work IQ readiness assessments, looking at whether your current tenant structure and access model will give you useful AI or just dangerous AI. And then we're turning that into real use cases, not just ask Copilot random questions, but this is how we create reports now, or this is how we generate proposals now with Copilot and agents built into that process. So if you take nothing else away from Ignite, take this. Copilot is no longer a toy. It's becoming a system that either amplifies your strengths or amplifies your mess. Now, the second big theme that caught my eye is agents, specifically Agent 365. If you're not living in this space every day, agent can sound like marketing jargon. So let's simplify. A Copilot chat is usually reactive. You ask, it responds. An agent can do more. It can plan, take multiple steps, talk to other systems, follow a workflow, and in some cases, keep working over time instead of disappearing when you close the window. Now picture not just one of these, but hundreds of them across your organization. That's where Agent 365 comes in. It's essentially a registry of all your agents, from Copilot Studio, third-party tools, partners, open source frameworks. It's a control plane so you can see who owns what, who can access what, and how they're all wired into your data. And it's got analytics and insights to understand usage and impact. It's Microsoft saying, look, you're going to have a lot of these things. You need a way to govern them, finally. On top of that, we have Windows 365 for agents, cloud PCs purpose-built to host agents with the right policies. So instead of every automation running on someone's laptop or in some mystery VM, you have a defined, controllable environment. So why should you care? Because without something like Agent 365, you end up with what I call shadow bots. Every department builds their own little chatbot, connects it to who knows what, and suddenly you've got a bunch of unsupervised digital interns roaming around your data estate. That's not where you want to be. So from a beyond the feature perspective, here's the shift. We're not just talking about adding one more feature. We're talking about adding a whole new identity service to your environment. Agents need identities, permissions, and a life cycle. Requested, approved, deployed, monitored, retired. At AuditSolv, I'm already working with customers on exactly this kind of agent governance framework. Who's allowed to request an agent? Who designs it? Who signs off on what data it can touch? How do we monitor it? And what's the kill switch if we see something we don't like? That's the difference between we're playing with AI and AI is now part of how we run the business. Now, next up is security. One of the more quietly important moves is that Security Copilot is being pulled into Microsoft 365 E5. Yeah, and along with that, Microsoft is lighting up a bunch of embedded agents across Defender, Entra, Intune, and Purview. So if you're a security leader, or you're the reluctant person who owns security, because nobody else would, this matters. Here's what it looks like in practice. You're not just buying a single Security Copilot. You're adopting a security fabric where multiple agents help investigate alerts, summarize instances and incidents, and recommend remediation steps. From a return on investment standpoint, this is big. Most security teams are underwater already. If an agent can pull together all the logs, summarize what's going on, and suggest next steps, you've gone beyond the feature and into time and risk reduction. But, and there's always a but, it only works if the foundation is there. Your Intune policies, your device compliance, your identity hygiene in Entra, your data classification in Purview. All that tells Security Copilot what normal looks like and what's worth alerting on. So when I work with clients on this, we're not just saying, hey, turn Security Copilot on. We're asking, do we trust our signals? Do we have clear playbooks where an AI assistant would help instead of just generating more noise? And where do we want humans firmly in the loop? Because again, that's where the return comes from. Not we turned on another security feature, but we reduced mean time to respond, or we handled double incidents with the same headcount. So now let's talk about the smaller and mid-size organizations for a minute. This is our sweet spot at AuditSolv. So for a while, Copilot could feel like something that only massive enterprises could realistically use. Licensing was complex, and the price point made it tough to sell if you didn't have thousands of people. That's changing. With the new Microsoft 365 Copilot business offering for organizations under 300 users, plus the way Microsoft is bundling Copilot for sales, service, and finance into the main Copilot story, the barrier to entry just dropped. Here's what I'm telling the small and mid-market clients I work with. You no longer get to say, we'll wait until it's more mature. It is maturing. The question now is, are we mature enough to use it as well? So if you're running a 50, 100, 200 person organization and you're paying for Microsoft 365 already, it's time to at least run the numbers. But again, on this show, we don't stop at that. We go, what are the 3 to 5 workflows where Copilot would save us real time or unlock new capacity? Do we have the basics in place? Identity, MFA, decent data structure, basic governance, so we don't make a mess. And how do we train people so the licenses don't just sit there unused? That's where Olympus Academy comes in and the books on Amazon for a lot of my customers. It's short, focused training and features that help people actually experiment the right way. Because if your users are scared of Copilot or they don't know what it's used for, it doesn't matter how cheap or expensive it is, you're not getting value. So one more theme I want to touch on, without taking you too far into the weeds, is multi-model Copilot. Microsoft is making it very clear that Copilot isn't tied to a single AI model anymore. In some cases, you'll be able to choose which model an agent uses. For example, in Excel agent mode, you can pick between different reasoning models for certain scenarios. Behind the scenes, there's always this deeper partnership forming between Microsoft, Anthropic, and NVIDIA, basically making sure the Azure ecosystem has access to some of the best models out there. Here's what this means in normal language. Going forward, when you say, Copilot didn't handle this well, you might actually be saying, we used the wrong model for this kind of task. So part of beyond the feature in the AI world is knowing when you need more reasoning versus more speed. Knowing when a particular model is better for documents or numbers or code or language. And making sure your governance and compliance story keeps up with whatever models you're enabling. Now, to be clear, I'm not expecting most organizations to become model experts. That's not the point. The point is, don't assume Copilot is one monolithic brain. Realize there are choices under the hood, and when you work with someone like me, part of the job is helping map those choices to what you actually care about: productivity, risk, and compliance. All right, so what do you actually do with all this? Let's land the plane. If you're listening to this and thinking, okay, Patrick, this is a lot. What am I supposed to do on Monday? Here's how I'd break it down. You don't need a 200-slide strategy deck. You need a clear starting point. Here are 5 moves I would recommend. Number 1, I would run a Copilot and WorkIQ readiness check. Not a buzzword, a real one. Look at how your SharePoint and Teams are structured. Who has access to what? Whether you're using sensitivity labels at all, and where your crown jewels live. If you wouldn't onboard a new employee into your current data structure and say, yeah, this is fine, then you don't want to drop WorkIQ on top of that either. This is something I do a lot of at AuditSolv, so if you need a sanity check, that's a great place for us to start. Choose one agent scenario and do it well, right? That's the second thing. Don't try to build 10 agents at once. Pick one scenario where the process is painful, the steps are repeatable, and success is measurable. Maybe it's an IT help desk agent that handles tiers 0 and 1 questions. Or it's a sales support agent that assembles first draft proposals. Or a policy Q&A agent that understands your HR or compliance documents. Build that with good governance, using Agent 365 concepts, clear permissions, and a documented life cycle. Then reuse the pattern for your second, third, and fourth agents. Number 3, treat Security Copilot as an amplifier, not as a replacement. If you're in an E5 world and you're moving that way, assume Security Copilot is going to be part of your life. So start by asking, where are we drowning in alerts today? Where do we already have decent playbooks? And what data sources do we trust? Then aim Security Copilot at those areas first. You're not saying, cool, the AI handles security now. You're saying, we're going to handle more and better with the same people. Number 4, get your endpoint, identity, and data people talking to each other. This might be the most unsexy recommendation, but honestly, it's the most important. Intune, Entra, Purview, Copilot, and agents. These can't live in separate silos anymore. If your Intune team goes one way and your Entra team goes another, and nobody's talking to the Purview folks, Copilot and agents are going to surface all of that dysfunction very quickly. So set up a working group, a regular call, whatever fits your culture, but get those stakeholders in the same room, whether realistically or virtually, and that alignment is going to be a huge part of your AI return on investment. And then invest in skills, not just licenses. So number 5, finally, we have to talk about people. The difference between we spend a lot of money on AI and we actually changed how we work is often training plus leadership. Training so people know what's possible. That's the features, right? But then leadership to say, hey, this is how we're going to do things now. You might have heard that in some of the recent podcasts that we've had. This is where Olympus Academy fits in for many clients. We use short practical modules on Copilot and 365 that help users build confidence instead of fear. But then working with the leaders, we help expand on that to increase the workflow, right? To integrate that in. Because if the only people experimenting with Copilot are your early adopters, you're not going to see organization-wide change. You need the managers, the frontline workers, champions, everyone to see how it applies to their world. So, of course, how can AuditSolv help you go beyond the feature? And that's my read on the first couple of days of Ignite, right? Copilot is evolving from assistant to work operating system. Agents are becoming first-class citizens in your environment. Security is getting its own AI fabric. Smaller organizations are officially in the Copilot game. And the model landscape, it's under the hood, is getting richer. But the real story, the one we care about on this show, isn't the list of features that was presented. It's this. Are you building a technology environment where AI can safely and meaningfully improve how your people work? That's the heart of Beyond the Feature. So if you're listening and thinking we need help with that, that's exactly what I do at AuditSolv. Copilot and Work IQ readiness assessments, agent governance frameworks using Agent 365 concepts, Intune, Entra, and Purview alignments so security and compliance aren't an afterthought. And then, through Olympus Academy, the training layer that helps your people put all of this into practice. If you want to talk about what an Ignite-informed roadmap looks for your organization, whether you're a 50-person shop or a large enterprise, reach out. We'll map it out together. Now, if you found this helpful, share this episode with a fellow IT leader, CIO, business owner, whoever's staring at all these Ignite announcements and wondering what to do next. A lot of us. Make sure you're subscribed to Beyond the Feature podcast so you don't miss future episodes where we keep unpacking how to turn the Microsoft 365 and Copilot experience into real outcomes, not just more features. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me for this Ignite special. I'm Dr. Patrick Jones, and I'll see you beyond the feature.